Hello guys, welcome to episode 2 of making the online Pokemon game in GameMaker Studio 2. In this video we're going to be dealing with connecting a server and a client together. This shouldn't be too terribly difficult. The main problem here is going to be that I am basically not that prepared, to be honest. I'm not one to go and make a second project and then test everything out beforehand and make sure everything works. And so that could leave things a little awkward at times. But I do have a general plan. I haven't written a GameMaker server in a while, so you'll have to bear with me. Here I have a client and server folder that I created before. I'm going to change that up. I'm going to create a group called network. And we're just going to put all of our networking stuff in there instead of having two separate folders. So we're going to be working in code blocks rather than with objects. So instead of creating two objects, we're going to create two blocks of code. And we'll create three. And these are going to be singleton objects. So I'll show you how to make a singleton here. But if you press Alt-C, that'll make a script. This first one will be network. And I'm just going to write this out here and we'll just copy and paste it. So to create a singleton, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to be underscore network, so lowercase, and we'll make this a constructor. The reason for the underscore is because usually variables that have an underscore are things that shouldn't be accessed outside of this scope at all. So at the very top here, we'll create a new macro called network, and this is what we'll be accessing. So for this, we're going to say macro network underscore is going to be get network, and it's going to be a function, and we need to create this function. So at the very bottom, we'll create a function, and it'll just be called get network with that underscore. And what this will do is it'll create a static. We'll call the variable n, static n equals, and then we're going to say a new underscore network, and then we're going to return n, and that'll be the end of the function. So this is a singleton. The way it really works is we'll be accessing this macro solely, which will return a network. The static keyword is what makes it a singleton, so it'll only ever create one value of this. So the first time you call it, it'll create a new network, and then it'll return it. And if you call this again and again and again, instead of recreating a new network every single time, it will just return the old value. So it'll return the same network no matter what. And that's a singleton in a nutshell. I'm going to do Control A and Control C to copy everything. And then we'll do Alt C. We're going to create a new script here for the server. I will paste this and we'll just rename these. So this is server, and get server. And this needs to be a new server. Oh, and this needs to be changed as well. Copy it again, Alt C, client, same thing. I don't know what I just opened, but yep, it'll be called a client. Get client. We'll copy and paste that. Call this client. Then copy and paste that. Sorry, I had a cough. I didn't want to blow up the mic. So that's basically all the three scripts we'll be using. Hopefully everything's big enough. It seemed big enough when I was looking at the video back. We'll have to see though. So under object test now, let's rename this to network control, because it'll control the network. This shouldn't be too much more difficult. We want to change this to be from a var to just a variable so we can access it outside of the create event. So if it's not a client, we move to the server room, and here we will need to initialize the server. So we'll say server.init, and we didn't create that function yet. And here we'll do client.init. So if it's not a client, we'll initialize the server, otherwise we'll initialize the client. That should be fine. And if I come into here, I will also need to make this persistent, because if we move to the server room, we still want to be able to access this network control and have it not recreate itself. So what we will do is add event. We're going to go to asynchronous and find async networking. And here, this should also be pretty simple. We're going to need to do an if is client. I will do client, capital C, client dot, and we'll do on async. We'll call it, we'll call it on async. We'll have to create this, obviously. Else server on async, and that should be everything. We're going to need to provide some values as well to this. So we will provide async load, I think they're called, right? Async, I spelled that wrong, but anyway, so var network, so NID will be equal to async load, square bracket, question mark, is this big enough? Async load, and we're going to load the ID. We'll need the N socket, I believe, async load, and this will just be the socket, and between this I'll do another one for the type, and I'm just going to copy and paste that, the type, and then we can provide these into the functions accordingly. So we'll do NID and type and N socket, and the N is just short for network. I will copy and paste it so they will both take in the same values. It'll just depend on if it's a client or a server. Alright, so let's go into my network code here, and we'll start here because we need to provide some generalized variables that will work for everyone. And I had a thing up here that showed all the information I needed, but we'll just wing it, I guess. So I guess to start off with, we need the type. So what type of server are we creating? We're going to be creating a network type TCP, and it's network socket TCP actually. The URL we'll need, this is going to be 106, 107. I don't remember what localhost is. Let's do a quick Google search. Localhost number, I think that's will probably pop it up. 127. I don't remember what I was saying. 127.0.0.1. See how prepared I am, guys? Anyway, the port's going to be 8080. Doesn't really matter. That's just the number I think of. And I think that's everything. We'll add more if we need to, but that should be fine for the network. So under the server now, we need to create those two functions. So I will say init equals a function, and this is going to create the server itself. So let me create a server variable. We'll set it equal to no one. And in the init event, we will say server equals network create server. Yep. And this takes in the socket, port, and the max clients. That's the other thing I need to add. In the network, we'll say max clients equals, and we'll do 10 for now. So think of this network class as a container for all the information on how the network is configured. I guess I could have named this network configuration, but I like just network better. So in here, in this network create server, let's provide those three values. I'm going to do this all on a new line here. So we need the type, if you remember. Yep, the network type. So we're going to do network.type. We need the port, so comma network port, and we'll need the network dot max clients. Very simple. That should be everything I need there. We will need to also create the on async function, and this takes in those three parameters, and I'm just going to copy it. So I'm going to go to my network control object and just copy these values, go back into my server and paste them in. That way I have the order correct and I don't have to worry too much. For now, I guess we can just create a message. So in the server, we'll just create a variable called msg equals nothing. This is just going to be for testing purposes. And in here, we'll just say something along the lines of message equals connected plus, and we'll pass in the ID. And actually, we need to do a switch event, a switch on end type, case network type connect, break, and this. And sorry if I'm going a little fast. Again, big project, we have to go fast for this, kind of. So yep, so we're going to do a switch statement on the type. So if the type is a type of connection, so we're connecting, this is the client connecting to the server, then what do we want to do? We'll just set the message equal to connected colon, and we're going to add in on the end of this, we'll concatenate the ID of who connected. But you can't just do plus NID, you have to convert it to a string, so string NID. And there we go. So anytime someone connects, it's just going to update our message variable to this. This is just for testing and not permanent, but hopefully it'll display something interesting. Anyway, under the client now, we get to create the same functions. So function, we'll actually need to say init equals function. So we'll create that initialization function, and I'm going to copy the async function from the server and just paste that in. So we'll do that. The client shouldn't ever get a connection type, but it will get a data. So let's do network type data. And I think that should have been one of the things I provided too, is end data. Well, it should be fine for now. We'll add that in later. Anyway, before anything else, we need to connect the client to the server. So I'm going to create a variable here called socket equals no one, and when we initialize, I will say socket equals network connect, or network create socket. The type is network.type, and then I need to say something about network connect. Yep, network connect, and this needs a socket, which we just created. So socket, it needs the URL and it needs the port. Network.url and network.port. All right, and I think that's everything to actually physically connect. I'm sure there's some bugs somewhere, something we missed or forgot. So let's just run this F5 and see. Nothing broke yet, so that's great. If I open up the A/B testing and run this though, it opens, nothing broke. However, nothing is also displayed here, and that's because we're not displaying it. So in the draw event, I will stop drawing all these parameters. I don't need that anymore. Instead, I will just say draw if not is client, so that means we're the server. I'm going to say draw text, and we'll just do it at 50/50 server.msg. And I can run this now as the server. It's black, of course, and if I come into the client, the A/B testing, and run it, it's hard to see, but it does say connected 0. I can probably show you a little better. Man, it's so small, such tiny text. But yes, we connected to 0. And if I were to execute it again, it didn't update. That's a little strange to me. I would have expected something to happen. There's no bugs. Not bugs, but there's no errors being displayed. So that's always fun, isn't it? When, you know, it stops drawing. I would assume that it should have updated this message to be that, I can log this, show, I need to do this before, show debug message, got data, and let's run this. And you probably won't be able to see it, but I'm looking for text at the very bottom. Ooh, you can't see anything right now, can you? Let's go to full screen. At the very bottom here, I am basically looking for a message. So if I press execute here, it says got data. Oh, but, and close that. Oopsie, poopsie. Let's see if we get data again when I connect. And I do. It did get data, but it is saying connected 0 still, which could mean that the IDs are actually the exact same, which I would be very surprised about. Actually, no, I'm not surprised, because NID is related to the server. I needed to be doing the NSocket. NSocket is the actual person who connected to us, whereas NID is the ID of where the data is connected to. So honestly, what I should be doing is saying if NID doesn't equal the server, then I can return. Because that's basically what it's trying to do. It's trying to see if this server is equal to the NID. It's basically like, who is this data for? What is this data related to? So if I run this now, and I run the client, it'll say connected 1. Again, hard to see, but if I press again, yep, connected 2, execute, connected 3, execute, connected 4. So it's just showing the last person who connected. Let's close all these clients. Let's close the server. And that is going to do it. That is, ooh, my dogs are barking. That is everything for the connecting of the server and the client. Next time is going to be less network oriented, and what we're going to be doing is making this UI better, because when I show text here and it's super tiny, that's not good for you or me or anyone. So we want a proper logging system to be able to log data and do some debugging. It's always good to get debugging stuff out of the way early rather than later. This will help us tremendously in the future. We'll be able to easily manipulate some stuff. It'll look good, don't worry. It'll just help us in general. So that'll be next time. And then after that, we'll probably do more networking stuff, because obviously this is very superficial. We'll need to add in actual getting data. So we'll add in some way to send a message to the server, and then we'll have to add a way to send data from the server back to the client. So that'll have to wait until next time though. So until then, I'll see you later.